Although the Chinese population in San Luis Obispo may have came and went, San Luis Obispo's Chinatown has stayed in the same location for many years. San Luis Obispo's Chinatown has always resided along Palm Street in between Churro Street and Morro Street. During its heyday, San Luis Obispo's Chinatown consisted of a few storefronts in addition to a small garden at the end of Palm Street. However, as the Chinese population declined, Chinatown started to fade away from the eyes of many. Much of San Luis Obispo's Chinatown was lost in the 1960s, when many of the older buildings along Palm Street were torn down. One of the last buildings that was saved was the Louis store at the corner of Palm Street and Churro Street. Palm Street remained empty for many years and was left untouched until 1987, when the city of San Luis Obispo decided to construct a new parking structure along Palm Street. Before the parking structure was erected, an archaeological dig occurred along Palm Street. The result brought some new light to San Luis Obispo's Chinese. Archaeologists found trash pits, foundations of old buildings, and many other glass items used by the Chinese during the heyday of San Luis Obispo's Chinatown. Artifacts that were unearthed were brought to an old chicken coop at Cal Poly, where an archaeological team had to work through hundreds of bags of material. Some of the artifacts that were recovered were up to 150 years old. The Palm Street parking structure was completed a few years after the archaeological dig. The structure covers a large amount of the old Chinatown. Due to some actions taken by city council members, the parking structure does show some Chinese flavor to it, including murals that are placed around the parking structure, as well as a small display containing a few small artifacts, and a brief history on the significance of the location. Chinatown in San Luis Obispo today remains much the same. The Louis store, in addition to a few other buildings, surround the Palm Street parking structure. The Louis store was bought out and is now used to run a vintage store. Some of the other buildings along Palm Street remain empty and are at risk to fall down during an earthquake due to their age. For the last couple of years, the city of San Luis Obispo began designing a new Chinatown. The project, which was set to be developed along Monterey Street, was approved by the city board in 2009. A slow economy has since halted the project, though.
As we have seen, various aspects, both locally to San Luis Obispo in addition to the general history of the Chinese in California, was responsible for driving the Chinese out of San Luis Obispo and the collapse of Chinatown. With all these questions we have answered, a new question arises. What can we learn from all of this? For one, we can learn a large amount about the Chinese culture that live in San Luis Obispo. We can see that San Luis Obispo's Chinese, like many of the Chinese that inhabited the state, were hard-working immigrants through all the various labor they performed in the area. We'd also feel a sense of a family-oriented and community-based ethnic group in this town. Chinatown is the greatest example of this, as it was small and even had a community garden at the end of it. Chinese workers exemplified this as well, as they stood united under Louis. And from the archaeological dig, we learned more about their glassware and arts. And finally, we can also see how some Chinese in San Luis Obispo were very respectful to their home here. For example, Louis' son, Howard Louis, operated his father's store and dedicated a bell to the city, despite the fact that so many Chinese were forced out of town.
And second, we have learned lessons on San Luis Obispo's community, and how it might not be as perfect as some may claim. We can see that the Chinese in San Luis Obispo were never as highly regarded as compared to their white neighbors. If we combine their story with other ethnic groups that lived in our area, we can see that ethnic diversity has hardly been a concern for this town. This fact is still seen to this day. San Luis Obispo remains predominantly white, and the once powerful Chinatown remains small, and its existence is still unknown to many visitors. From these new lessons, we feel that we had best address San Luis Obispo's Chinese and San Luis Obispo's Chinatown. As we progress further as a community, it will be the actions of the individual members that determine the importance of ethnic diversity in our city.